will, go ahead. Yes, President Bill McGowan, Lisa McGonigal, Rod Hoffman, Wayne Sawchuk, Dan Coughlin, and Paul Kearse. So our first order of business is to approve the meeting minutes of March the 30th and April the 13th. And I would make a motion that we approve both.
Second.
All in favor? Bill McGowan, aye.
Wayne Sawchuk, aye.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, schedule of next meeting?
Yes. Let's see here. Wow. So would that be May 11th? Huh? We do it in 2 weeks?
I think that would work.
Yeah, it works for me. Well, I'm not sure if I'm traveling yet, but I'll let you know.
And I'm going to California sometime in the middle of May, so I'll confirm my schedule too.
So where are you going, Wayne? I'm going out to Tahoe.
I'm going out somewhere in California. My son's out there, and I haven't seen my grandson, so
yeah,
it's been a long time.
No, I haven't seen my son in like 16 months. So anyway, on we go. So we have a public comment on the nitrogen permit that we got. I don't know whether we really have to do anything. I think it's just a matter of saying that there, if somebody wanted to make a comment about it, we would listen in. So
Let's just see Brian's on when we promote him to panelist.
I think I see Brian's on now. I think that, and I don't know what our status is in terms of, as a board, have we prepared any documents that we wanted to send over to support this? Or is that something that may come from Dan Coughlin? Or, I think we want to do everything that was on the list that Brian gave us a couple of weeks ago.
with regard to CJC or the nitrogen, or
the nitrogen from the addition for our permit to operate.
Yeah.
I sent out an email a few weeks back, didn't receive any comments on it. That the permit pretty much was renewing what we already have with the piece about the nitrogen that we talked about. Is it appropriate to ask them for a like a 5% increase or 10% increase in the usage outflow? We seem to be bumping up against our 20%.
Yeah, I mean, the typical process is you'd have to start a new permit process.
You would, okay.
do we really want to do that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either.
I suspect not at this point, but
In terms of your flow, you were only at 71% at the end of last year. So you still have a ways to go.
yeah, well, we when we calculated it with peak I&I and all that, we were at times bumping up against that 20%, right? So we had talked about some of the estimates from CJC and Cook would bring us up to that 80%, quite possibly on a regular basis. So anything in addition to that would bump us over the 20.
Yeah, well, that's just bumping over the 20 doesn't really matter.
Okay.
It's based upon the rolling average for a calendar year.
Okay.
So, I mean, you have peak limits and you have max day limits that are 630 and 1 million gallons per day. In reverse, your peak is much higher. But so I mean, right now you're at 71.
Okay.
Exceed 80% on that 12-month rolling average calendar year base. Do you then have to respond to DEP? And the response, if you look at the new permit, is pretty simplistic. It's, what happens if you go higher? How you plan on doing it? What are your plans for expansion? And if you really don't have a lot of plans for expansion, there's not too much you really have to do. So, I mean, it's something that you do have to address after you exceed that 80% threshold, but, and something to think about. I'm not saying forget about it. But at this point in time, there's really no action level, and flows are still within the design realm of the facility. And when we get those other flows, again, if you look at it from a Title V perspective, those are max day flows.
Okay.
And your average day flow should really be about half of that value. So even though you're permitting something for, let's say, 20,000 gallons per day, on an average day basis, it should be something less than that. It should be closer to 10.
Okay.
So,
we've talked about South Main in the past as well, so I'm not sure what those flow rates would be when we start to add all of these up over the next 3 to 5 years. Is this permit good for 5 or 7 years?
the new permit will be good for 5 years. And they still have the caveat that if they don't renew it after 5 years, it continues.
Okay.
Too busy to do that, but
Yeah, we had talked about this a few months about it just continuing, and all of a sudden we heard from them.
Yeah.
And Dan, you did some calculations, I think, on South Main Street and stuff. So I don't know if you want to share what they were or whatever now, or just set it up.
Yeah,
for
we
discussion.
didn't, we didn't do a final count, but we were upwards around 35,000 gallons per day on a max day Title V base. So that would mean about 17, 18,000 gallons per day flow base potentially. For those types of residential areas, it tends to be a little bit less than that. So like I said, right now I think our 12-month rolling average in December was 321, and we need to hit that or exceed that 360 mark. So even with South Main and potentially even with other connections, you still might be below that 80% level.
Okay.
And only when that average goes over do you have to respond to DEP.
Okay.
I did send out a summary a couple of minutes ago to everybody regarding the permit itself too. I did do the review and summarize some of my observations there. We're only one of 4 coastal communities in the 66 general permit communities listed. And EPA has asked CZM to take a position or give an opinion relative to the feasibility of the coastal communities under the general permit. So even though we see this now, CZM could come back and say, they want lower limits or something like that. So it'd have to be evaluated. So it's not a done deal at this point.
Who has jurisdiction on this? I've dealt with CZM for 5 years, and they seem to make comments and throw rocks, but not really do anything.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's all they need to do. They've been difficult over the years, more difficult than usual.
I know.
But the EPA as a local state authority on coastal environments, EPA has requested an opinion from them on the 4 communities, including Cohasset. So
Who are the other 3?
I don't recall. I think Governor Drummer was one of them. I'd have to go back and look.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, can you resend that email as well? I'm looking at the Outlook right now. I don't see it here.
Yeah, I just sent it a couple of minutes ago, but I will. And there are a couple other things too. If you dig deep in the permit, it's not just the permit limits. I think last time Scott was indicating that maybe the FAFs didn't apply. They do apply, in my opinion. So there is going to be that extra testing that you have to do. We don't really know what the cost of that is because EPA hasn't established standardized criteria for testing yet. They're still working on that, but when those kick in or when they finalize their opinions on the testing methods, you'll have 6 months and then you'll have to perform that testing. And my guess, it's probably in the range of about 2,000, 2,500 with each test sample. So it's another 10 grand a year. There's also a couple other requirements in there too. I'll just summarize.
I just, your email just came through, so I've got the Word doc up. So.
Okay. I'm glad Brian's on too, because one of the aspects that they're looking for is a collection system O&M manual, but to go with that is a comprehensive master sewer plan. And I know, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I had sent Brian all our sewer plans, which were geo-referenced. And I know there was a marginal effort to try to establish a GIS plan for the sewer as well. And I'm not really sure where that's at, but it kind of looks like we'll have about 2 years to finalize that plan and to come up with a master sewer plan, you know, with all the attributes, where the manholes are, the pipe lengths, everything. So it's a standardized type of GIS system. Brian, I don't know if you're available.
Do they have a format that they want that in?
They don't really stipulate, they don't say it's GIS, you can do it other ways, but it really is. The easiest way to do it is in the GIS base. And I'm not sure how much of the information from the sewer plants has been already converted over. I know the town is working on it, was working on a GIS base. Okay. So it would be good to find out where that is.
Yeah. So,
yeah. So we have, so
part of the licenses
is our platform. And so what's been done so far is we've scanned the as-built plans as kind of a hyperlink to certain areas, but the geo-referencing didn't exactly match up with the manhole locations on the as-built plans to what's actually in the street. So it'll take a little bit more kind of mapping and referencing to get the coordinates right, but you know, the base is there, and you know, I think 2 years is definitely a reasonable time frame to get you know, a schematic lines and nodes and all that thing on the actual GIS plan. So that's been done on the water side, but we need it on the sewer side.
Okay, some of the attributes too need to be put in there as well, and that would be like you know, lengths of pipe between manholes and that type of thing, and that stuff can be, for the most part, extracted from the plan base.
Yeah, I think like diameter, pipe material, and then you have between nodes, your distances and such.
Okay.
So you know, we have all the plans in the as-built. It's just a matter of getting them referenced accurately. You know, geolocated with XY coordinates. You know, lat, long.
Yeah. One other thing too is they're looking for an updated collection system O&M plan, of which would be incorporated into the existing II program that they have or they require. You have an old collection system O&M that was developed by Weston and Sampson years ago. It really needs to be updated. So we also have to plan on doing that within the next 2 years as well.
Anything more on nitrogen?
Just to piggyback on Dan's comments. So on the rolling average, the way it works is, so the earliest response we would require of DEP if we exceeded the 80%, next January, you do the calculation on this 12-month rolling average of 2021. And if we exceeded that 80% mark, then you are required to respond in some fashion by, I think, the end of March 2022. Just to put the time in perspective.
And you know, Brian and Dan, just to be clear, the actual monitoring point for the determination of nitrogen outfall into the harbor is from the plant. Is that right?
Yeah, typically they refine it as, or define it as a point of discharge. So in theory, it would be at the outfall discharge, but in essence, it's essentially what's leaving the pipe.
Right. And do we ever take samples of the harbor itself?
Well, we collect harbor water as part of what they call wet testing, acute wet testing, and we've been doing the wet testing every quarter for the past, I don't know, probably 15 years or so, and it's always come back very good. And the wet testing basically would define if our wastewater is toxic to marine life. And it's always come back 100%. In other words, you know, fish could live in it. So the bottom line for that though is when they do the wet testing, and that's part of the sample protocols too that are in there too. They talk about ambient water. That's part of the wet testing protocol. But we sample the water quality and we use that water that we collect in the receiving waters as part of the laboratory test. So there is that, you know, water quality that's extracted.
Do we know what the nitrogen level in the harbor is at any one time?
Well, there's been a lot of testing over a period of time, and it does vary. It obviously spikes a lot after a wet weather event.
Right.
But I mean, it is highly variable. We do have a dynamic system. We do have some good tidal exchange in there.
It's just part of our monthly report from Wood and Curran. Do they put that in there?
You don't
They do it from the plant, but I'm wondering because people have asked me what's going on in the harbor, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, there's salt water coming in and goes out every day, twice. So
Are there changes? Are there changes since it was dredged? A couple of years ago? When the testing was done, did you ever notice any change because they, dug out the channel and stuff?
there's a higher. I could tell you that there's a higher rate of flow of liquid or salt water coming through.
Yeah.
Because of it, but it's also filling in rapidly. So it's probably 50% occluded as of.
Seems it would dilute more.
It increases the tidal flux. So more water comes in, more water goes out. It's more dynamic. But like Bill said, it doesn't last that long. One aspect too of the new permit too is basically there is a requirement for examining the outfalls every 2 years. Basically inspecting them and videotaping them and notifying DEP and EPA when you're doing that with it. So we're gonna have to. We did it once just to verify what was going on. Now it's a requirement where you actually have to do it every 2 years. And the first time has to be within. I'm sorry.
So who's we, Dan?
It would be the sewer commission.
Yeah, but who's going to be doing it? Is that the contractor? Is it the folks running the plant, or is it?
Oh, we'd probably have to hire a diver to go down there.
Yeah, that's what we did last time.
Yeah.
We solicited bids and hired a diver, and we'd have to set some criteria and put it out to bid every 2 years.
So
that was done part of the dredging, right, Dan? We wanted to make sure that there was no harm and it was located correctly and stuff like that.
So does Lisa have a schedule of tasks that need to be done on this 2-year plan? When's the next?
Well, the permit has to take effect first.
Okay, but we've having to do this, or is it a new requirement?
It's a new requirement.
Okay, so we haven't had to test for the last 2 years.
Yeah, we did the first dive on our own.
Okay, so we have a baseline.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
so now with the new permit, we're required to do it every 2 years.
Now is the CMCR, so the group there in the end of Parker Avenue, are they still doing testing and stuff in the Gulf River portion and stuff?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I mean, for a while there, they were getting some grant money from EPA and DEP and CZM to do more. And they did. They're using students, obviously, but I mean, they came up with some good data, especially if you're lacking information. And they usually have like an annual state of the harbor. I don't know if you've attended those before.
Yep.
And, give the information based upon their sampling and testing. The conclusions aren't always right on the money in my view, but, there is some data there, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other things too is they're interjecting anything that would impact the outfall and the effluent quality, especially in terms of bacteria. So in other words, if we have an upset or something, or we enter that SOP, high flow SOP mode, we will have to notify, or the operator will have to notify now Division of Marine Fisheries within 4 hours. So they interjected a new notification process and then follow up with Division of Marine Fisheries within 24 hours with a written report. So there are some additional new requirements on the operators that will, I'm sure we'll have to take a peek at a little bit. Just going through my list real quick. They did have some additional criteria for, industrial users. And, we, in the past, we've simply said, we don't have any industrial users and put it to bed. But it's been so long now. I mean, you do have commercial entities in there. And to be honest, I'm not sure if we all know exactly what's going on in some of those buildings, especially along the railroad tracks or, other locations. So it may be good to do some inspection of the commercial entities just to make sure we know what's going on so we can assert again that we don't have any industrial users. There is additional requirement too for the operator to start filing all his DMRs on NetDMR. So it's an electronic filing system. Should simplify the process for him, so I don't see that as an add, but there will be a requirement for that. So that's pretty much the major stuff. The PFAS are the biggest thing because they're basically asking us to do this in anticipation of issuing a permit for those. And that could be problematic. We're measuring these constituents down in the nano micrograms and it's really low levels of detection, and the methods really are a little sketchy as far as how well we can quantify those. We'll have to see what they come up with. I don't expect anything for a period of several years, but it's tough to do it on the wastewater end. It's easier to do it at the source. So there may have to be some additional investigations or restrictions that you add later on to try to limit those.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Dan and others. The measurement for PFAS is in parts per trillion, and we've been talking about nitrogen. That's parts per million. So you have parts per million, parts per billion, and parts per trillion. So it's such a small amount that on the water side, they're finding in the source water anywhere from 10 to 20 roughly parts per trillion just in source water from runoff. And if you had collected a sample, so PFAS is in firefighting compounds, it's in waterproofing compounds. So say if you had a waterproof jacket on and a small amount got into the sample, it would go off the charts. So if you think of people laundering, just clothes and whatever might be in laundry, I would imagine that the amounts would be much larger than what's on the water side. So I think any kind of clarification or pushback would be on the PFAS. That could be a big deal, as Dan said.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's nothing they're doing right now that we can object to. They're not setting the limit. They do have the right to ask us to monitor for these parameters to collect data. So there's not too much we can really do there. The only thing we could maybe push back on would be the frequency of testing. Another item too is basically the wet testing. All our wet testing has always been 100%. And years ago, they used to have basically a criteria where you could kind of wean your way out of doing all the wet testing because it is expensive. I think you probably spend about $3,000, or the operator spends about $3,000 or $4,000 each time to do the testing. And if we can reduce the frequency, it would be better. And it all comes down primarily on that regard to the dilution ratio. We're at about a 33-to-1 dilution ratio, and that works out in their tables to basically be 4 times a year. So my only other response to them would be, potentially if you have so many quarters of good testing, that potentially that would allow us to back off of that criteria to save a little money. But
I was thinking about the idea of what we have for industry in Cohasset, and years ago we'd have cleaners that actually clean clothes in Cohasset in their shops and stuff like that, and dry cleaning and everything else. All that stuff is taken out of Cohasset now, and the shops are just retail, drop it off, pick it up, but everything's done outside. The only one that I think it'd be interesting to find out is would be the dishwashing machines at restaurants, because it seems as though they're very hot water is needed, but they use detergents, obviously, that are making a quick process. And it'll be interesting if those ingredients contain anything that would be, not positive for us.
Yeah, I mean, the other things too is any new connections. We're talking about CJC, what's going into those facilities, that could potentially introduce more PFAS or more contaminants that you have to deal with as well. But I mean, you really haven't, years and years ago, we talked about industrial pretreatment, categorical standards, and you really didn't have any industries at that point that met that criteria, but you haven't done any investigations on a door-to-door base.
Yeah.
And, I think it would behoove you to do some due diligence on that end and just make sure you know what's going on. Because down the road, if PFAS are instituted as a permanent limit, at least you have a base for recognizing potentially where they may be being introduced.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, should we go on to CJC?
Yes.
And I believe it's the applicant who called, wanted to have a meeting, so I'll leave it to them to tell us what they want to talk about. I'm not sure who wants to lead the charge on that one.
I don't know if Lisa has to let somebody in the meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looks like Jeff DeLisi wants to
I
talk.
just got in. Can you-
Sorry about that.
All right. Can you guys see me or just hear me?
Hear you.
Okay. You don't need to see me anyway. Well, I'm Jeff DeLisi with Orenberger, DeLisi and Harris. I'm here today with Donald Stasko of Cohasset Realty Trust, who owns the property. And I believe we have our engineers, although I can't see the list of participants, but I believe Mark Negrati and Anthony Omabudo are both here from Tetra Tech.
We have Negrati and Hudson.
Hudson, okay. So as the commissioners know, we've had multiple preliminary discussions. I believe also, I'm assuming there might have been a discussion or two in executive session. The property is located at 380 400 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, or 300 390 and 400. I filed an application formally last week for a sewer connection at the property. We've discussed on many occasions that if there's a public amenity, in this case, we're proposing 20 units, residential units, which would be counted towards the town's affordable housing inventory. That public amenity would allow the commissioners to consider an application to connect this property. We also believe that there's an environmental benefit, which is obvious. And so the proposal, which I'll let our engineers at Tetra Tech inform the commission about, is essentially to bring a gravity sewer main from the property to a manhole in front of the Tupelo Road pump station. Just to give the commissioners a sense as to where we're at with the project, the construction is coming along. The residential units are probably or could be about a month away, or at least a good portion of the residential units from completion. A regulatory agreement from the standpoint of a deed restriction has been drafted and provided to the town manager, who has indicated, I believe, that that will be signed and we will get that over to the state for acceptance prior to July 1st. And I think today's concept is really for us to show the commission what we're proposing exactly from an engineering standpoint, and allow the commission to ask any questions, or Dan. Also, I believe our engineers might have a question or two for the town, and to answer any questions that you may have. I think the concept here is to bring what was previously an informal discussion into more of a formal setting, so that we could hopefully get to the point where we could discuss a connection. So with that, I'll ask Tetra Tech to put the plan up and explain what we have.
Jeff, just real quick, I noticed that the development agreement wasn't in there at all. What's the status of that? How are you addressing that?
Well, I think the first draft of the agreement was drafted by the town, and I had provided responses to that, and the town had provided responses in return. I think that that's yet to be determined, Dan, because I think that there are probably some key components that I would expect that we would need to discuss. That being the regulations, as you're aware, for instance, are based on a connection fee, which is based on an EDU for intended uses under Title V flows. And we've provided data with actual water and intended Title V. We believe that the number is accurately $1,416,375. And I believe that for some reason the town believes that figure should be higher. We disagree, and that's something that I think that we need to vet. In addition, this would be, without any question, I think that the matter is resolved as a public line. It's in a state highway, and it requires, the law requires it to be a public line. And so as a result of that, usually I think what would happen is that in a normal circumstance, there would be a sewer main in front of a property, and a property owner would request to be connected to that sewer main. In this case, it doesn't yet exist. The connection fee, from my understanding, a portion of that connection fee it goes towards reimbursing the town's cost of having previously put that sewer main in. In this particular case, there is no sewer main yet. And so what we would be proposing would be to construct the sewer main, and then allowing, and then paying the difference and in the fee between what the actual cost of construction would be and the fee. And then others would certainly be able to connect. For instance, my understanding is that there's a discussion involving the Cook Estates potential need to connect into sewer. And though it's not something that is in front of the commission today, I know my client and I have discussed that he's perfectly willing to discuss a situation where he provides access over his property for the Cook Estate to hook in. And so it being a public line, there is a good benefit, I believe, to the town deriving some, income as a result of the existence of the line. I do want to point out that the way Tetra Tech has designed this is for the connection for the sewer main. Basically, to enter our property line at the south corner of the property on 3A. We're not proposing to bring the line all the way to Sawyer Street. That was a discussion that I believe was something as a result of the town's request in connection with the prior application for a grant. But that's at least at the moment the proposal. So that's the best answer I can give you, Dan.
So I'm sorry, my apologies. I had to go find my agreement, and I didn't hear you, Jeff. Your beginning of your statement. Are you saying that the agreement that we presented to you, you want to negotiate it? You want to go back in and look at the sewer charges and who pays for the sewer line down 3A?
Yeah, I have not yet provided my comments to your comments to the draft agreement, and I believe that we do need to vet that. I know factually that as the agreement stands, there are some key issues that we have a disagreement on, such as the cost of the connection and such as who pays for it and how the payment of it works. And so those two issues in particular, just picking them, I think we need to come to an agreement on the dollar sum of what is the intended use under Title V of this property and what is the fee. And then
I think we've told you that our engineer has gone through your drawings and produced based on Title V what the fee should be. And we've actually, I think that you were informed this by the town manager, that we, from our original stated number, I think it was 1.8 something. I think we gave you or actually didn't give the applicant, we gave to as a sort of discount to the affordable housing, we took a $250,000 off of that.
Yeah, and I think that we need to have a further discussion about that, because your figure of 1.8 million, or approximately that figure, we disagree with it, and that's something that I would like to explore with the commission. And then, of course, there's the issue of who pays for the line. The way the agreement is written is that you would like the applicant to pay for the line and pay the entire connection fee. And in my estimation, in that circumstance, the fee just simply becomes a tax.
So has this been discussed with the town manager?
I haven't had any communication with the town manager regarding this particular issue, probably in a month or so.
Let me introduce a little
That's
bit.
something that needs to occur without question.
I think it does, because I'm not going to put words in his mouth, certainly. But the direction we were given is that, we are to use our collective expertise through the town's engineer and Dan to say, this is what it is. I mean, we're the ones who, I don't think we want to adjudicate this right now, but I don't think we should be debating who sets the standard. I mean, we do it for the town, period. And
Okay.
Can I add? I'm sorry, Wayne, do you want to go? Or
Let me just make two comments, if I can. First of all, Jeff, you said that the proposal is to put in a gravity sewer. I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's doable. A forced main certainly would be doable. But the second thing is, I'm interested in seeing what the application is in terms of what they want to do and stuff, so that we can have our review, get some of this stuff out of the way, so that, if everything goes through smoothly, we're not at the beginning of looking at an application months from now. We'll have that looked at and have our comments and stuff.
And that's I couldn't agree more with you, Wayne. wasn't intending on today's meeting to be a negotiation of the items that I just discussed. I answered the question because it was posed to me, but I think that Tetra Tech could explain to you why this qualifies as a gravity system. That's beyond my pay grade, and they're here today, and I'd love to kind of get that information in front of the commission, so at least we know what we're talking about here.
So I just wanted to just interject one thing, and that is, I know that there was that formal proposal that went back and forth about who pays for what. And that was, we didn't have an official application or an official plan from you. So Jeff, are you stating that this application you've submitted and all of these plans is now your official request, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we actually have something to look at, and then compare this with your group to see if this fits the best interest of the town as far as sewer is concerned. And then at that point, a determination would be based on what that cost is, and then who bears that cost, right?
Yes.
I'd like to just address a couple of things too, just to give you my comments. One of the first things Attorney DeLisi talked about was the flows and the quantification of flows. And I think the perspective we took on behalf of the commission was basically there are often changes in use at these facilities. You know, one dry goods store might be changed with a wet goods store. You know, a clothing store might be replaced with a gym. There's a lot of different uses at the facility. So what we did when we examined that, we looked at the historical uses and then calculated the flow based upon a range of flows. I think what their engineer is doing right now is only looking at what the current proposed uses are. And that's something that we might be able to overcome. You know, if basically all changes in use come before the commission for approval, you can then evaluate whether or not an increase in flow is anticipated and if any additional fees would be associated with that. So that's one way you could safeguard that type of thing if you went with their engineer's opinion relative to existing flows. But again, because of the history at this facility of changes in use, you know, we've taken a conservative approach, an approach that I think is valid to reinforce. But there may be methods, like I just said, that could overcome that. In terms of the gravity design that we saw, certainly both gravity and force mains or pressure sewer can be instituted in this area. The question is, you know, one has significantly more capacity than the other and has more capacity in terms of expansion, something that the plant currently does not have an overabundance of. So if you were to put in a gravity line, you know, that would have much more capacity than typically a force main, a dedicated force main. The design also crosses the highway twice, which isn't really opportune because if the town takes that over, now the town's potentially going to have to be working in that right away even more, or, you know, basically potentially excavating or digging up over a period of time if a break should occur. So that's not opportune either. The original concept, I think, that we had proposed to the commission, which would have limited capacity, would be a dedicated service line for this facility, was that of a force main. And certainly that could be placed along the edge of roadway. I know they went to the other side of the street. Potentially that was a result of water location. I'm not really, I haven't really looked at it that hard, but it's something that we need to discuss a little bit further as far as what type of facilities you want to have in place within the right of way. But the big thing for me is we have an application, and generally an application needs to be reviewed in a timely manner. This application, though, really doesn't define the only reason we are allowed to look at it, and that is basically the affordable component. This is outside the sewer district, and a normal application outside the sewer district would be denied, and the applicant would have to go back to town meeting for approval to expand the district to include that property. The only prerogative you have in terms of expanding it is basically for that 40B component. And that should be guaranteed and identified and basically provided for in that, final development agreement. And without that development agreement in place, or, one negotiated to the point where it's part of the application, I feel that you don't have the ability to voice anything except a denial on this application at this time. You really need to have that component defined in order for you to make a decision to go outside the district. So in my view, that development agreement is a key to allow you to consider this application for connection. That's my opinion.
Dan, if I just a couple of comments on that. First, I appreciate your comment regarding regarding
The flows.
figuring out ways to deal with the flows. Thank you, Dan. I just wanted to point out kind of a for instance as to why it is that we need to continue that discussion. For instance, the septic system that's presently at serving the Stop and Shop building at 400 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, that system was intentionally oversized. But the figures that the town used in order to justify, for instance, the $1.8 million figure took into account an oversized system versus the more accurate concept of what is the reasonable actual water data that's being used. So that's a for instance as to the type of issue I believe that while we all kind of touched on it in the preliminary discussion early on, we haven't really kind of honed in. We haven't gotten the answers, that we asked concerning, why are you including that? And I think that it would benefit all of us kind of looking at that again. I believe that I agree with you on the on the private agreement aspect is you need an agreement in this circumstance without any question. The application process was begun to take this conversation out of an informal realm and out of what I perceive to be a little bit of a dark realm in an executive session and bring it into a public situation where we could actually talk about what we're proposing, whether a gravity system, for instance, is appropriate and or doable, viable, and kind of bringing it forward. So I agree with you. We need an agreement. I've provoked this process to have a formal discussion about it. I'm not asking for a vote today. I'm asking for the commission to review the plans and give us some direction as to whether our plans are viable and appropriate in this location. And then I think that we move on to a discussion about the particularities of the agreement.
Okay, so just from that perspective, all I'd ask is basically that the applicant at this meeting basically grant the commission sufficient time to consider this application pending the formation of a mutually negotiated or pending the formation of a development agreement for this application. In other words, I don't want any timeframes or to be dictated to the commission, by inaction or otherwise, by not reviewing the application because we don't have the other documents. So
if you're asking whether we're going to try to claim some kind of constructive approval, I don't foresee that. I expected a discussion. I expect the discussion to go beyond today. I think that we're all working in good faith towards what's best for the town of Cohasset, both environmentally and otherwise. And so certainly I expect to allow the town to take the time it needs to reach a conclusion and to vet out the issues on a private agreement without question.
Yeah, and to that end, I think that the board certainly will talk about this. I have to say I'm surprised. It was not what I thought. We were going to go back to the negotiating table on this. I thought that had already been previously determined. And I see this negotiation, or pardon me, this application and having a third party other than the board of the sewer commissioners tell us what the rate should be is going to set up a slippery slope. Will all the ratepayers in the town of Cohasset have the right to come back and say, "Hey, I don't like what you charged me to put your system in. We have a calculation that shows that we can do it at a cheaper rate." I just am surprised that this came up. I thought that the application, the information that we got from the town manager, and again, I'm not putting words in his mouth by any means, was that, you guys do what is in the best interest of the town, is in the best interest of the sewer ratepayers of the town. So, and that was the motivation for us to give a $250,000 discount to you. And as far as everything else is concerned, I know we've had no direction one way or the other from anyone as to whether that should be, any of the other terms and conditions of that agreement should be changed.
I'd like to add just a couple of comments, and that is, I asked 2 years ago to have the applicants, engineers come in and discuss what it is that they'd like to do and give us some, tell us how they can go ahead and connect this onto the plant and how they can make all this work. I think today's agenda item should be to have Tetra Tech make a presentation to us and tell us what it is that they'd like to do, so that we can see whether it's feasible and stuff like that. And it is going to be very difficult to, if you've got a sign on 3A that says for lease 3,000 to 30,000 square feet, how can you tell us or anybody, or the owner's not going to know, who might come in to occupy the vacant space that's going to be available? So how do you do a flow on something like that? If it's going to be a medical facility, maybe the flow's high. If it's going to be dry goods and TJ Maxx, maybe it isn't. So, but I think the idea is, let's see the plans to see how you can build the connection to this, if that connection is going to happen.
I'm happy to turn it over to Tetra Tech to do
Great.
do just that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Lisa, I'm not sure if they're promoted into the conversation.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mark McGrady from Tetra Tech.
Good.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thanks.
Thank you for having us today. I'm not sure if you can see my face on the screen or not at the camera, but I'm here obviously as the engineer for Cohasset Associates for the purpose of a sanitary line connecting from 380, 390 Chief Justice Highway to the Tupelo Road pump station. Now, we've looked at this in a couple of different ways, from gravity line to sewer line, a force main line. And based on the topography of Route 3A, with the elevations and so forth from 380, 390 Chief Justice, or the project site area, to Tupelo Road, obviously there's a grade change there. And we looked at it in a point of installing a gravity line down from the site property. Now, I'd like to share my screen if I could, but can you see this right now?
Lisa, you're on mute.
I'm on mute?
No,
No, you're
Sorry
okay.
about that. I'm gonna have to promote you to panelist. Hang on one.
Okay.
Give me a moment.
And help me.
Okay, so You are now promoted to panelist. And Mark, can you hear us?
He's on mute, I think, right now. There you go.
I can't see you.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, do you see me and hear me now?
Yep.
See you.
Okay, good. Do you see my screen?
I see your logo.
All right.
So I think the only way that you can share your screen, Mark, is if I promote you as a co-host. Is that allowed? I'm not sure.
Do what you have to do.
Okay.
It says right now in the Zoom meeting, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I'm not allowed to share my screen.
Okay, so I'm going to make you co-host and I think you'll be able to.
Okay.
Okay, so now can you try to share your screen?
Let me give it another try.
Looks like it's coming.
Very good.
All right, is it coming through?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So let me just start with the overall view here. I think we all know where the project area is. I know there's some history there. We're not involved with the past history. Our charge from Tetra Tech is for the sole purpose of helping Cohasset Associates install a sewer line from their property site to Tupelo Road, the pump station down there. And let me just walk you through the area, if I may. And please stop me if I go too fast or if you have any questions. You notice there's a lot of yellow stickies here. I'm not sure where these came from. Our drawings didn't have these. I think they may have been part of a file transfer and maybe a PDF reader. But I'm not, these aren't, I think they're all CAD points and somehow they showed up in the drawing that you received. But from Cohasset Associates, this is the site project site area, 380 to 400. Stop and Shop is right here. What we'd like to do to connect the property here, this is similar to close to a high point on Route 3A, which is over by the traffic signals. That would be to the north, and everything flows down, or the roadways goes downhill from that point. So we're starting from this point here, from the sewer manhole. We'd like to go gravity line using an 8-inch PVC pipe with the minimum cover of 4.5 feet. I believe that's the part of the regulations. And we're going to connect going down Route 3, following the contour or the profile of the roadway with a minimum slope of 0.006 as we get down towards Tupelo Road, because Route 3A flattens out. As you can see, this is a standard design using roughly 300 feet plus or minus is your maximum distance between manholes. Minimum slope, as I mentioned, 0.006 foot per foot. We use drops, or not drops, we drop a tenth in the manholes between connection points. And we go down following the profile of the road along Route 3A. And let me just back up to a point where we cross over. Now, we have a water main on this side of the street, we believe. The exact location is, I'm not 100% sure. We've done our due diligence with our surveyor. We've also contacted MassDOT to help us with this water main location. We couldn't find any record drawings. So with that said, we know it's on this side, so we decided to maintain separation and put this gravity line on the other side of Route 3A, which is on the east side, to a point where we believe the water main crosses over to the from the west side to the east side. And we call for test pits there to locate the existing water main, so that way we cross over at the same point. And now the reason why we decided to go on the shoulder is that part of the MassDOT requirements is that we have to maintain traffic on Route 3A during construction. So if we put it on the shoulder, on either side of the road, we can maintain 2 lanes of traffic during construction and avoid the 1-lane alternating route for a brief period, only used to be for a brief period of time, which would be right in this location when we cross over, and also closer to DePella Road. And if I can walk you down, we follow the westerly side of Route 3A. When we, to a point where we arrive at DePella Road, and the pump station, as we all know, is in this location here. We do connect to the existing manhole at DePella Road. We we don't have any drops per se. I mean, drops meaning exterior drops or interior drops in the manhole. We avoid that. We avoid what I believe the water main would be located roughly 5 feet down. It would be industry standard. We'll do a test pit there to confirm location and elevation so we can avoid this before we can order materials for this. And we drop it down, and then we connect to the existing structure using core and seal sleeves, basically rubber boots and stainless steel straps, and core the existing structure. Now, as I mentioned, that we believe the sanitary sewer can be designed or in gravity format versus force main, providing less maintenance to the town. We use if I go to the details, just an overview, we use the standard manholes with the extensions as required by the commission. And we have HMA pavement, temporary during construction, so things will be paved at night. I'm sure the DOT will give us conditions requiring paving at night, so we have a temporary patch during construction, and then we'll come back and do a perimeter patch. And our details are our standard details for sewer main, where we have crushed stone around the envelope of the pipe, and then we use approved backfill coming up and compacted on Route 3A. And this is all going to be vetted out by MassDOT, because this will have to this application will have to be we'll have to go to MassDOT for an access permit to get onto the highway. That is it in a nutshell on this. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question on, can it be a stronger pipe than normal SDR 35 or something like the Blue Brute water main in terms of protecting it a little bit better in the future?
It can be. It can be. I don't think there's a need for extra strength pipe at this point. I think SDR, we do meet the minimum cover requirements for SDR 35. We do envelope it with crushed stone. And as we all know, the stone provides the strength of the pipe. But if the commission would like to use a Blue Brute or a thicker wall pipe, we could certainly consider that.
You're going to be in the ground with it?
As a designer, I'm not opposed to doing that, including a stronger wall pipe.
Now, if it was something like that, and there was 20 years from now, there was a change and you wanted to make it a force main, it would almost always already be it, except for the manholes. And I don't know whether that's a thought. But anyway, I'll leave that up to our engineer, not me.
Are you going to be in the water table?
Hmm?
Are you going to be in the water table with the excavation and pipe?
We don't have information on that. I would assume that we're going to be close to groundwater as we get down towards Tapella Road. But up in this area towards the project site, we're only about 4.5 feet, 5 feet down. Some areas 6 feet down. So I'm assuming that we would not be in the water table in this location, but most likely when we work down in this area, we'll be in the water table. Because we are adjacent to resource areas, wetlands.
So you went through this fairly quickly. Are you comfortable that you know now, or you still have to do some research in terms of where the water lines are, where the water main is on what side of the road at the place? Crossing.
We do have to do some more research, and we reached out to the town engineering department, and my understanding they're trying to dig up some as-built drawings of the water line.
And I'm not sure they're available.
If they're not available, then the best option is to locate it by test pit.
Yeah. I guess the other thing is, I know that the Stop and Shop side has a significant amount of telephone cables that were encased in concrete. And the only problem with the gravity line is when you come across an obstruction, whether it's another water main or crossings, you sort of, I can't guarantee that you can get down the 4 or 5 feet uniformly down the whole stretch.
That is true. That is true. Now, to my understanding, the fiber optic cable or the telephone lines are on the shoulder of the roadway, off the pavement. I believe if I go backwards, there is some telephone manholes. Let me just see. I witnessed some telephone manholes over here in this area, off the pavement in the, I want to say either the grass shoulder or the gravel shoulder. Now there are some overhead wires on this side, on the easterly side, that we have to maintain a safe distance away. But I think if we put it on the gravity line on the shoulder, we'll be farther enough away from the overhead lines to work around.
Have you called DigSafe already to have a market to sort of confirm some of this?
No, we have not. We need to do a test pit, to call DigSafe legally. My understanding, you have to do some form of an excavation, or plan to do an excavation, either a boring or a test pit.
Right, but it's free, and it's all you have to do is to get some white paint and mark out where you want them to put the lines. Just to
agree. I don't disagree with that, but they tend to frown upon doing that for engineering. But
put a contractor's name on it. It's only good for 30 days anyway, so.
True.
Anyway, is this part of what was sent to us already? Because I didn't see it.
Yeah, in enclosure number 7 of the plan that Lisa had sent out.
Oh, okay. All right.
If you put it in, if you save it in a PDF, you can blow it up pretty good, like I have.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah. Right. I guess, let's see. I guess at the Stop and Shop side, you're going to be using a pump station at some point to get either across from the 3 buildings to a point where it's going to enter the gravity, right?
That is correct. The proposed site work will probably have to have a pump or 2 pumps to pump that sanitary sewer to the manhole located on the southerly side of Stop and Shop right here. So these will be force mains pumping up from pump chambers.
Okay.
So Mike, did you look at the force main alternative as well? An evaluation of alternatives?
We did. From right here, we have the high point over by the traffic lights over here. Now, if we pump downhill, pumps typically don't like to pump downhill. So, and with gravity lines, there's less maintenance with this line.
I mean, you can certainly pump downhill. Depends on the head conditions that you have and how you have everything set up in terms of the pump seats for head. In terms of the force main or the pressure sewer, we don't have any II issues, obviously. It is a pressure vessel as well. You're crossing over into the zone B, I think, all along Route 3A. I mean, basically you have Peppermint Brook, which is the tributary to the town's water supply. So the pipe integrity and manholes all have to be, of a specific water tightness to meet state criteria. I don't think the SDR 35 would meet that criteria in terms of water supply protection. In terms of the force main 2, you say it's less maintenance, but gravity system has manholes that need cleaning, inspection, frames and covers that need to be kept watertight and maintained. The most you would have maybe is an air release or some isolation valves on a force main. And in terms of capacity, again, the town is limited on capacity. Even your 8-inch pipe at 0.006, you're going to have a lot of capacity in that potential in that pipe versus a restrictive force main. So that's why I asked, besides that, obviously gravity is feasible. We always knew gravity was feasible. The question is, in an alternatives analysis, why did you go gravity versus the force main? And I think we need to see something like that in order to feel comfortable with this type of alternative. And again, the concern again is the water supply in Peppermint Brook in the zone B that you're going to be operating in.
Yeah, well, Dan, won't if they used up, I mean, they're basically saying we could tell them what pipe to use and stuff.
You talked about the Blue Brute and stuff, and obviously that has great pressure and it's a lot thicker, but it's still, there's a structural requirement involved, and the equivalent is basically, ductile iron pipe that DEP typically references. Because the issue is if a contractor goes and hits the PVC pipe versus hitting the ductile iron pipe, there is a certain more resilient integrity with the ductile. So, I mean, that would have to be addressed. You can encase the pipe, you can do different things, but I don't think the SDR.
But I think that other people digging in the shoulder of the highway is, and certainly you would be locating it with magnetic tape and stuff like that, so that in the future, someone could go ahead and, know that it's there and stuff, versus what we have today with even the water main. A good part of that is an asbestos pipe, and you can't really locate it with current means.
Yeah.
So, I think that would, I don't know, I look at it as if they can do it gravity and it can work, and it has the waterproofing on the manholes, and it has the rubber gaskets going in and all that type of thing. It wouldn't be much different than many of the places in Cohasset that we've done it in the past. But I is absolutely, we don't want that to happen. But I agree, you can, have reasons for doing things. So it's just the problem is you don't want to get halfway through the thing and all of a sudden they're running into something that wasn't there because they didn't know it. And now how do you change direction, or what do you do? Do you go back across the other side of the street?
Yeah, we're kind of famous for ledge in Cohasset, so.
Well, I don't think we're going to have ledge there. I think you're going to have, I don't envision any ledge along there.
I mean, that's one of the nicer things about a force main is you can bend around certain objects, go underneath, go on top, you're not maintaining grade. So it is a little bit more forgiving. I should mention that all our piping within that Peppermint Brook area is ductile iron. So we.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, we basically incorporated ductile iron piping in accordance with the state criteria at that time to, safeguard the system and the water supply. So
The large pipe going across the street at Tupelo Road isn't that like 24-inch pipe or something you said? And that's ductile iron?
we have a 16-inch coming down from Pond Street, going to the pumping station.
Oh, 16. And it's ductile iron, huh?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
So Mark, is it possible for you to provide, maybe an eighth enclosure or an amendment to the application that gives the town some of these options we've discussed? Once this line is put in, it's going to be conveyed to the town. So we're kind of looking at the long-term maintenance of the line and the rigidity of that line. So if you have the ability to put those options in for us, so we can have option 1 and option 2 and do kind of a comparison.
We can do that. If Cohasset Associates would like to do that, we can certainly provide an alternative design for a force main. The force main, I will say the force main will be very similar to this design here. This design maintains 4.5 feet of cover, a force main, you need cover to avoid freezing. So the alignment will generally follow this alignment. There'll certainly be less manholes. There may be a blow off up at the top at the highest elevation. But we can certainly do a design of a force main. It'd be smaller diameter pipe. It could be HDPE pipe, fused pipe, force main. There's a variety of different pipe materials that we can offer and look at. But generally, the rule of thumb is that when you can do something with gravity, the rule of thumb is to do it with gravity if you can make gravity work. And when you can't make gravity work, you go with a force main.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I'm just yielding to our subject matter expert, Dan Coughlin here with his concerns about certain areas.
Yeah, I mean, I would generally agree. If you can go gravity, that's great, with the premise that you're going to have additional connections along the route. And that's something that, you can debate either way. There's not that many properties along the way, and it's kind of questionable if we will ever get a connection on that system. They're most likely, if the properties along Route 3A that do want to connect, you have the ability to connect to a manhole, or you'll connect with a Y connection, depending on the elevation. If they're higher in elevation, I believe some of the homes are higher on the west side, and on the left or the east side, they're lower in elevation, so they might have to pump to that. Right, and if they're pumping, then essentially, gravity connection is not really providing as much benefit as it would normally provide. Typically putting gravity so people can connect by gravity. Mm-hmm. Generally, yes. And the question is, I mean, with this length of pipe and, how many connections are you really going to have? What's the capacity? I don't have it in front of me. You know what the capacity is at your minimum slope? Oh, I believe it's 800,000 gallons a day. If I did that, roughly, let me just find, I did a hand calc, just a quick check yesterday. Your minimum velocity is 3.8 feet per second. And your volume is 1.3 cubic feet per second. That's your maximum capacity at your minimum slope. Yeah. So I think, not to, it's nice to have something with some capacity for connection, but You certainly don't need that type of capacity given your plant size.
No, but we had to go, we had to use an 8-inch minimum diameter.
Right,
That is the accepted minimum.
right. All I'm saying is the gravity pipe innately incorporates a lot of capacity in that line and potential for connection. And, you know, it also is susceptible to II influences. So, I mean, you can, certainly we can debate it, and whatever the board wants to do.
We can certainly change pipes if you're worried about II. We are, well, SDR 35 does have an infiltration allowance there. We do call for testing in accordance with the commission's regulations for the sewer main. And we call in this, and as part of this package, we prepared special provisions that reference the commission's regulations. We do call for mandrel testing, and I believe we call for a video inspection of the sewer line.
Yeah, but again, you still have to address the issue of being in the zone A.
True, true. Now, if, you know, there's other pipe materials, as SDR 21, for example, heavy wall pipe, gasketed pipe, again. Blue Brute is basically a water main, PVC pipe. That can be considered too.
Right. The state's criteria is kind of vague. It does stay of similar structural integrity to ductile iron. So that would have to be evaluated. In our view, and what the town has built prior was ductile iron piping. And when it was not ductile iron piping, it was encased. So that was the town standard within the zone A.
Mhm.
And to me, it would make sense to use the ductile line across the highway, because you're spanning something like that, and
Right.
not necessarily needing it going down the shoulder. You know,
Well,
so
you would
the manhole on both sides, you're just going manhole to manhole with one material and then the other.
Right. Well, it's basically structural integrity and water tightness. So generally speaking, in terms of DEP, it's been referenced before that minimum water tightness is at least 165 PSI. And, you know, structural integrity is basically something that's protected. That's not PVC. In terms of the shallowness, I mean, it's relatively shallow going underneath the state highway at 5.5 feet or so. You know, you still are potentially subject to wheel loads. So ductile line going across the state highway, in my mind, is a good idea as well.
Okay.
And that we can consider that with ductile iron, you're going to have a different end value there. So you're going to lose a little bit of capacity, but we're not worried about capacity at this point. So we have plenty of capacity. So that's I guess we can another alternative that we consider. Or if the town would like to have ductile iron, we can consider that in this part of this application.
You know, just
Roadway.
the general recommendation is, you know, listen to Attorney DeLisi. Earlier, it seems he's looking to get some type of credit or something for the alternative. I'm not saying the commission is going to consider that at this point in time, but you know, an alternative analysis relative to gravity versus force main may be opportune in terms of, you know, environmental aspects, in terms of construction aspects, and in terms of cost. You know, this is an alternative being proposed to the commission for construction. So I think you're entitled to look at it from, or examine all the alternatives that would be available to you.
This is Alfred Morgan calling. My phone tells me that I have an appointment scheduled with Dr. Newsom Forum at 4:30. Can you verify that? Pardon me? Oh, 9/28/50. 9.
We all set?
I'm gonna have to reschedule it because I'm not even in the area.
Mike, you still there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here. Was that a question? I couldn't hear. I heard someone talking on the telephone, but I
Yeah,
couldn't.
no, I did as well, and it sort of went blank. I'm just wondering, are you guys all set? Because we have a couple more things we need to address today.
I'm all set. But thank you for your time. If you have any further questions, please give me a call.
Now, do you have a, there was a question that came up at one point was the application just for the residential housing building, or was it for everything? And I've always understood it was going to be for everything. So I don't know, have you developed a plan on how you're going to get the sewage to this location to send along its way? Meaning, are there anything, for instance, if you connect the restaurant building, is the grease trap still going to be there? Is there going to be a pump station from there to the location and stuff like that, that may have an influence in what is going to be in the sewage that you're sending us? You know what I mean? And that, in fact, we don't want a lot of grease, so we don't want the grease trap to be discontinued, but we want the maintenance to continue like it would be for other restaurants and stuff like that in town. And I don't know if there's a grease trap, for instance, for the Stop and Shop, or whether their flow is coming out because they have somewhat of a mini treatment area or plant, and it's been working very well. So what's the, is that going to continue, and is that flow going to continue to be a good flow? You know what I'm saying? So in other words, there are going to be a few questions asked as far as how you take care of what's left, and if, for instance, I know that a restaurant is certainly another possibility. When that restaurant is being built out, would there be provisions to do, the grease traps and stuff? So just a sort of a general idea of what that entails.
Mike, were you doing the offsite only, or are you doing on-site as well?
We're right now, we're engaged to do the offsite at this point. We do have some preliminary concepts and paper indicating, I think it was part of the submission package, but it was basically submitted or provided for information only. The design of the on-site work is not completed. Do you have that, Dan? Or
Yeah, I don't have the, I don't believe I have.
I believe it was part of the package that was submitted. Do you see that screen now?
Yeah, so enclosure 6 is a preliminary sewer extension, just a top overview. I don't see, doesn't detail some of the on-site. I can't.
No, for this meeting, for this discussion, this plan view sheet C1,
yeah,
I believe was provided by Cohasset Associates for the overview.
Okay.
And I guess if we could speak about it now, we do connect building 380 with the force main, and the grease traps, my understanding, will stay in place. The existing ones, they'll have grease traps there for the restaurants, and that will go into a pump station and be pumped to the manhole that we proposed on the southerly side of Stop and Shop. And also for building 390, you'll see a pump station there pumping up to the manhole that we proposed on the other package for the offsite package. Same manhole with 2 connections.
You actually can start your, share your screen if you'd like.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
So just so that the commission knows, I believe that plan was the sixth enumerated enclosure entitled Preliminary Sewer Extension and Modification Plan.
And I have to say that this is not a design. This is a concept plan, and it's only provided for information at this time. And again, the yellow stickies on the plan view, I'm not sure where they came from. I think it was a file transfer related to an Adobe or PDF making.
Yeah, the stickies didn't show on my attachment that I had, so
Okay.
I'm not sure who was able to see the stickies on their attachments and who's not.
Okay, I could see, I could see the stickies, but
Yeah, again as well.
for some reason, when we submitted this, and it didn't have the stickies, but then when I received a copy of it, it came back with stickies. So I'm not sure why that happened. I'm assuming it's an Adobe thing or some kind of a PDF reader related issue.
Essentially, what you're doing is basically each building is going to have its own pumping station and force main.
Well, I can't say for surety. There are some opportunities there for gravity to pump down to one pump station, but you know, at this point, it's a concept. And it was not, this was shared for information only. The focus of this meeting today, I believe, was for Route 3A proper.
So basically, everything on site is right now is shown as a force main, and then you going as soon as you go into the right of way, you're turning over to gravity.
Gravity, yes, because we're taking advantage of the topography, because this is the high spot right here, roughly in this area on Route 3A, and everything goes down in this direction, and obviously goes down to Sawyer Street. So we took advantage of putting a manhole here and letting it go gravity down to Capella Road.
You have any flow metering on those pump stations now?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. That's something for Cohasset Associates to answer.
Dan, what was that question? I'm sorry.
I was wondering if you had any flow metering on those pump stations now, the dosing or anything like that. Any flow metering on site?
I'll have Donald look into that, okay?
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
What do you project for the time it's going to take to get a permit from the state to excavate along the highway?
It'd be a few months. We have to meet with the town. I'm sorry. We have to meet with MassDOT, the permit engineer.
Yeah.
Let them review the drawings, and they'll probably give us special conditions with an access permit. Typically, you know, they'll tell us you can't work in during the winter months without other special conditions, no steel plates during the winter months. They'll have to review the pavement design or the replacement. And they're worried about traffic. Leave some conditions with traffic. Now, I will say that I've worked in Cohasset a couple times, one with Avalon, about 1,000 feet away on that project, another one over by the train station, about a mile and a half away. So with that, with the DOT, I'm familiar with the DOT's process and the permit engineer and the district. And I will say that every district in the DOT, MassDOT, I call that, a little bit different on the permit application. Some are a little bit faster, a little bit more streamlined. Some are follow the rules, and they may have different requirements based on their locale and the volume of traffic.
Okay.
They'll have most likely they'll have someone on site, or have the applicant put someone on site to inspect during construction. That would be a condition. That's something that, you know, we can do. We've done that before because we've done that with Avalon today. That's in our wheelhouse. I mean, that there's no concerns there. And there might be time restrictions for working. It might be a 9 to 3, or it might be evening hour restrictions, depending on, sometimes you have to work at night. But since there are residents around their homes, they may not require that. Consider.
Do you envision any extra delay because of the whole COVID thing in terms of the personnel all working and stuff?
You know, I'm finding, I can't, I would say yes, because, you know, we're doing a Zoom meeting today because of COVID, right? So I'm not sure how we meet with the MassDOT or get, you know, try to meet with them. Usually I like to meet with the team and go over the details and have someone, a live conversation, and try to get an answer and direction and find out what are the stopping points, or what particular requirements or preferences, you might say. So with the District 5, they're pretty straightforward. They're in, and they do follow the book, the rules directly. So we're looking at a few months, I think, by the time we get an applicant from the application to approval.
That seems aggressive to me with the state.
That's a normal.
You can do it.
I believe they have, once you file or put an application in front of the DOT, the district, they'll have a minimum of 30 days to look at it.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know with COVID, how does that extend? And I don't know how many other applications, permit applications that are in front of us.
Mhm.
We haven't filed the permit yet, because you really want, you want the design to be everybody on board with the design before you go to the DOT. To make sure that, so we're not changing the design or the application. Because if we change the location, for example, from the east side to the west side, it changes, or put the sewer main down the middle of the road, well, that changes the permit. You know, that changes the philosophy with traffic. Because how do you maintain traffic? And that's the DOT's MassDOT's responsibility.
Right. Well, my suggestion is, and I'm not speaking for the whole board, is to have you go back and try to refine anything that's going to be in your way, you know, with whether it's water or telephone or gas or whatever, and sort of get that as close to reality as you can, so that you're not in a situation of starting out and then hitting something. And then secondly, dealing with Dan Coughlin about what materials, what alternatives and stuff like that, so that the next meeting we can try to get some direction and move things along.
Okay.
And
I will say, I didn't mention it during the presentation, or the brief presentation. We did have a couple crossings along Route 3A. We had some drain lines across the road, and we did design the system so that we either be going over them or under the drain lines. So we did avoid those crossings.
okay, good.
So, and we do have as-built information. We had survey information, which I didn't mention before. We do have elevations and inverts and so forth. So we snaked our proposed gravity line through those two crossings.
Yeah.
Now, to my knowledge, there are no electrical lines below grade crossing the highway, to my knowledge. Everything is to the east. There's some telephone manholes there to the east, but that's off the highway. And beyond the highway, we'll be on the shoulder, or actually near the fog line, if you want to call it that, and the pavement.
There may be some tree cutting and stuff like that involved, right?
No, nothing proposed.
The stuff is far enough away?
Yeah.
I was thinking, okay.
Yeah. Nothing proposed.
Okay. Because I know, like, I own property at 514 Chief Justice Highway, and the water main was across the street, and then right up the street, it went across back over to where McNulty lives, the large 5-acre tract or so, and then it goes down. So it is on the other side of the road and portions of it and stuff. So
yeah. Ideally, I would have rather have the sewer main go down one side of the road on the easterly side. But due to the water main location, we had to move it to the other side, and we have two crossings now.
Right.
On Route 3A. I mean, that's, we just have to, and I thought about going down the middle of the highway, then you have to worry about traffic.
No, we wouldn't want to worry about ever having to maintain it though either. I mean, you can't even inspect a manhole in the center of 3A. You
need some assistance. You need a police detail.
Yeah, I'd be totally against that.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, it's not, and of course it would cost $500,000 more to resurface the road.
Yeah, so right now we do call for a permanent patch. On the highway.
At a certain width.
Yeah, probably 5 or 6 feet patch or somewhere around there, depending on the disturbance of the highway. We'll put back a matching kind. And, you know, that's a detail how we design it, where I put the gravels in the dense graded a little bit thicker on the temporary patch. So that way you can mill it out, meaning with the milling machine, mill out the 3 inches of temporary mix, mill out the 4 inches of dense graded plus or minus. So that way you're down in the trench, and then you can put your box paver in there and pave it out. That's a detail that we'll work through with MassDOT. It's a point of trying to expedite the process of construction, so and provide the least amount of time on the highway, therefore less concerns with traffic.
And do they make you do a flow concrete, the concrete mix that you put on top of? What is it?
Flow fill? No, not necessarily flow fill. There's not a lot of utilities on this street or this roadway. So compaction and so forth we can use standard compaction equipment. So
I think DPW and Brian might have a flow fill requirement. I'm not sure if that's going to be applicable.
It's a DOT or MassDOT roadway, so it falls under their jurisdiction for that.
Yeah, MassDOT has a jurisdiction out there. I mean, in our roadways, we do require flow fill, just to prevent poor compaction leading to settlement. Just wanted to note one thing. So, I mean, you kind of beat around a bunch of issues, but you know, the gravity, getting the pitch right, not having any interference, and the I&I, the two major issues. And just look at the FEMA flood maps. You know, the entirety of Route 3A is within it, with the new maps that were updated, I believe, last year. From I think basically half of this pipeline would be within that flood map. So again, that just kind of underscores the importance of water tightness on everything. Thanks.
The gas main, is that a high pressure main? What size is that out there? I see you running along it on the south side or whatever.
To my knowledge, it's not a high pressure main, to my knowledge.
What size is it?
I believe it's 4 inch.
Does the board want them to do an alternative analysis between the two, or are you?
I think that we have a bunch of rocks to move around ourselves before we get to that point. And I needed to get off 15 minutes ago for my other job.
Could have Dan do it. I mean,
yeah, we could have him, but I think we could talk about that. So before we give a thing, but yeah.
I mean, I'd have the applicant do it. I mean, just they're doing the.
Yeah, it doesn't do any harm for them to do it, actually, to see what they want to do. But
I think it's both. It's important for both sides, so that you share that as well.
Yeah, right.
So, just so that so we're gonna start the process of evaluating the application with Dan and get some sort of an update at the next meeting.
Yeah.
All
right.
That okay?
Yep.
All right. All those want to make that as a motion?
No, not yet. No,
Okay.
I mean, it's more of a procedural thing. So.
Okay.
Anything else, Jeff, you want to address?
Thanks for the opportunity, Dan. No, the engineering is certainly outside my pay grade. I think Wayne might have asked a question about timing. I know from my personal conversations with Senator Pat O'Connor that he's taken an interest in this project because of the affordable housing component, and he's volunteered to help in any way he can to streamline the MassDOT process. So that's potentially a factor, which I'll run down once it's germane. But as Bill mentioned, we do have some rocks to push out of the way first. So I recognize that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're pretty much done on everything other than the last piece that I wanted to talk about with respect to the board. I sent a presentation out to the board last night. Did you guys have a chance to look at it?
Did. There's a couple of things that you had as
Presentation for tonight?
refer to LX, yeah.
May I,
So-
may I just ask a question?
Sure.
Are we going to be talking about 380 or 400 anymore?
No.
No, not right now. No, we'll get back to you on another day when we can get.
Okay, I just don't, I don't want to take up your time, or if you have any other questions, please reach out.
Yeah.
But thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you.
It's important
All
too.
right, take care. Bye-bye
Thank you
now.
all. Yeah.
So I was asked by the select board to put a presentation together for tonight. I don't know whether we're all posted or not, if this is a posted meeting. Lisa, do you know?
Yes, you are posted on it.
Okay. And basically it's to look at the proposed rate increase. You know, when I do these kinds of things, I do them, you know, basically less is more, and I'd rather talk than list a whole bunch of information. But in some of the cases with the Excel spreadsheets, they're necessary as just backup for some of the say cost of living and the electricity that went out. But I went through this yesterday afternoon with Lisa and Dawn, and basically he was in agreement with the points that we listed. And, you know, it is what it is. If they approve us, great. If they don't, then it comes out of our capital, basically. So, so we have, I think we're on, was it 7:30, Lisa? Does that sound right? 7:20, 7:30, something like that?
Yeah, something like that, early on.
All right. And there we are. So what I wanted to do is I wanted you guys to at least look at it, and if you had any comments, fine. If not, I'm going to ask Lisa to send the presentation and the attachments off to Tracy, and then have her send it to the select board now.
I thought you're going to send what you wrote.
I did.
No, I got it.
Oh.
Like that. But we're going to send that to the selectmen and not make a presentation then?
No, we are. So sending it to Tracy, she will be the person running the show. So I'll just talk off of it as she.
Oh, okay, but it's not necessarily for her to give all the.
She's going to give them to the board. The select board wants to see it before the meeting.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
All right,
I don't, if you look at their agenda, it allows you like, I don't know, 3 minutes or something. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's probably just going to be no.
Yeah, it just said that they're voting to put it on the warrant.
Oh, just for the warrant, because I thought
I was
thought
asked
they
by.
voted against it, though, right?
They did vote against it, but I was asked by 3 different board members to prepare a presentation and submit it prior to the meeting. So
Yeah. So, yeah, at 7:20, it just says annual town meeting warrant, vote to recommend article number 4, sewer rate restructuring. And then there's 5 or 6 other departments on here.
Yeah.
All within 40 minutes.
Well, first of all, it's going to be about 4 hours before they get to it. When you're going into executive session and getting back out again and then dealing with some of the things they're dealing with. So good luck to them.
All right, so we're planning on being on at 7:20 to present our woes.
Mhm.
Okay.
So is going back to the whole Chief Justice Cushing thing. I have a call with Chris Senior later on this afternoon about this. This was a box of rocks dropped on us. I thought they were going to go back to their original or to our proposal rather than theirs. And there are 2 things that I see as roadblocks. One is the town is not going to pay for it, period, and we're not going to pay for it. So who's going to pay for it? And third is we're setting really dangerous precedent of letting people or applicants coming in before the board and telling us, well, no, we're not going to pay what you say. we're going to pay what we say.
Yeah, you don't have to consider anything that he said today. I
No,
mean,
absolutely not. No.
Continue with,
Yeah, and I just, yeah, I mean, the reason we have an engineer is to tell us what the right is in a non-biased evaluation, and that's what we do. It's what we do. I mean, to do this, and for him to throw Senator O'Connor at us at the last minute, ooh, I'm scared. You know, I mean, I can't. I don't know. They're forcing it. Rod, do you have any comments on all of this?
I was, working through a letter to DeLisi saying, you haven't made a complete application because, as Dan noted,
Yeah,
you haven't justified the affordable housing piece of it, and I'll just say that we'll accept it as a submission, but it's not an application, and if it would be subject to immediate denial if we formally considered it, so it's not an application.
yeah, and I don't know where, because one of the reasons I want to talk to Chris, and I believe this to be true, is I don't think he's had any conversations with them at all. So I don't know where they got it in their head that they can come back to us and renegotiate. I mean, other than just desire.
I just didn't want constructive approval because we're not giving them an opinion on the application, and he didn't really state it specifically today.
Well, that's why I want to write a confirming letter saying,
I agree with that.
It's denied.
Right.
If it's formal, it's denied. Otherwise, you're acknowledging that this is, that there no time limits apply. So it can't be a constructive approval.
And they gave us a check, didn't they, Lisa?
They did, yes, and I still have it, and that was gonna be my question, what do you want me to do with it?
How much is it?
20,000?
Rod, what do you think? Should we wait? Should we, I mean, if we don't want to cash it and then say that their sort of submittal is denied, do we?
But that's to review the applications, isn't that a review fee?
But what's that based on? What's that amount based on?
It has to be look at our proposal, our contract that he supposedly signed, but apparently they haven't signed it. Yet he said that they did sign it, right?
No.
They didn't sign it.
No.
Okay.
I want to rewrite it.
In that, it says how much that we wanted for a deposit for engineering review and Rod's fees and stuff like that. And if it says $20,000, then that's what that $20,000 is for.
I mean, I think Rod can address that in the letter, indicating that, they have to allow us to use that money for preliminary review if that's what they want us to do, but it's still not an application.
Okay, so right now we're gonna hold on to it. I can actually ask the treasurer to put it in the vault.
Yep.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
we get a confirmation on how we can use that from the applicant.
And Rod, would it make sense to tell them we're going to, put it in the vault until we get a proper application?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, from my perspective, you need a formalized development agreement before you can consider it an application.
But one of the issues we had was for the last several months, we've been going back and forth on hearsay, and the primary complaint or concern from the commission was we've never seen a plan, we've never received an application. So now we have a plan with the application. So I think now if we couple that with the agreement that Rod has, I think we have a comprehensive proposal, right?
Does
Right.
how is the agreement connected to the application? Right? Meaning one is saying we're going to give you permission to tie into sewer if you do this, this, and this. The other is we want to see how this could be accomplished. And you really need how it could be accomplished done before necessarily giving them permission to put flows through it, right? And of course it would have to be inspected and all the rest of it. Meaning,
Right. You can certainly, they can certainly submit or acknowledge the draft agreement. You know, to make it, the agreement basically forms the basis for you to consider the application. Without a commitment to provide that affordable housing to you, you can't consider it outside the district unless he goes to town meeting. So, I mean, I look at the agreement as being a key element in the application, whether it's in draft or whatever, it has to be part of the application. At this point in time, he hasn't even submitted anything.
No, and I think that's got to go in. I mean, the thing that's also puzzling to me is why is he designing something that they want the town to buy? You know, if the town is actually contemplating, which I hope they never do, to pay for the sewer line, then they should design it.
well, first of all, we don't have the money to put the sewer line in.
No.
We're not going to put it in on speculation. It's not in the sewer district, so we're in.
Oh, no, I know. I'm just,
You know.
I'm sort of talking sort of like, you know, sort of hypothetically on this, but
Right.
what would it cost, you think, Wayne, to go down the street? Or any idea?
Less than $1 million.
Less than $1 million, okay.
But we don't know, you know,
You don't know what you don't know, right?
yeah, they are
What-
going to hit things.
Yeah.
That, you know, that are gonna come across that they don't know about, and they're gonna have to address it and all that other stuff. They may, through the senator's ability, get a fairly quick turnaround on a permit. But you know, you can't just call up a contractor today and say, "Oh, don't you start tomorrow morning?" That, you know, isn't prepared. And the questions about what the materials are going to be and where exactly it's going to, you know, mark it out.
Right.
But
And there are developable lots across the street on the western side, aren't they?
well, it's conceivable, but
I don't believe so. I think the lot you were talking about between the Stop and Shop gas station and the next residential home, I believe, is part of the state park.
I think they had private homeowners' names on it.
Yeah, no, it's on the other side of the road from the park. It's like I'm saying, like from where the appliance store used to be.
Right.
From there down to a house, which is, I think, across the street from Peter's place, might even be Peter's house. It looked like there were 2 lots in there.
yeah, but the key thing is if one of those houses had a failure, would they
Would they want to connect?
would they be required to connect up because it's there? But you know, McNulty's property is probably the largest property, you know, in terms of there.
Yeah. All right.
And it's all filled in land, so you know, sewer would be the only alternative for something there. But I don't expect them to sell it and get rid of that beautiful barn they put there
Oh, yeah.
and do something.
I-
So it really leans to be a single user pipe, you know, meaning,
Right.
but it sets a precedent if someone else says, you know, I want to extend the main to Avalon now because I don't want to use that plant anymore, or
There you
anything.
go.
And you did it for this person, and I have 20% affordable units too. So, you know, but my plant's not working too well. Or the new owners wants to put in 200 more units.
Which they do.
So what we have is an application, we have a plan. And now that we look at the application and review the plan, now we assess the cost. And we have an agreement that says, here's what the cost is, and this is the amount you need to pay.
Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about the cost of the line
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
And then the cost that we have is from our consulting engineer, period, full stop. If you want to do it, great. Happy to work with you. And if you don't, that's fine too. I got to go, guys, and I've got a call that I have to take a while ago. So,
All right.
We had a couple of other things on the agenda. We're going to do the engineering service contract just to review the edits and vote on that. It was basically just a vote.
You want to put it off the next time you can, that's fine.
yeah, I appreciate it because I got to blow. So,
Same thing-
You can
same
leave,
thing.
we can finish up.
all right, I'm going to go. See you later, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, Bill.
See ya. See you tonight.
So
Maybe.
you can note that Bill left at 12:04. That sewer application connection discontinued, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if anybody else does, so you want to just make a motion to.
Excuse me, I looked at it and just wanted to reorganize it. And I
Okay.
apologize, I didn't
All
get
right.
it done until yesterday and sent it off to Dan to make sure that I didn't want to change any substance, but just as a matter of organization. And so I would request that that be pushed off till next meeting to make sure that I didn't mess things up.
Okay.
We'll do a final review on the 11th of May for that.
Yeah.
And Paul, do you have anything else that you want?
No, I don't. I'm good.
All right, Dan, anything else that you want
No, I don't think so.
thinking about? Good. And Lisa, you're all set?
I just wanted to note to you guys that the grinder pump releases, an update for that. We had about a little over 100 people that have not sent in their releases, and the bills were posted today. So they will see that 125 on their bill.
We did.
But you're anticipating a few phone calls, are you, Lisa?
Pardon me?
You anticipate a few phone calls coming?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have an answer. Sign the document.
I do.
We did have one more thing, and that was the Diab lots.
So is that posted on the town website, by the way, the release form?
It was not.
Okay, maybe we can post it under, so people can just go online and get it and fill it out.
Well, it's all, well, it's personalized.
Okay, okay.
I saw something recently about Diab Lane. Is it just Bill?
She had-
Yeah.
We had 3 applications in. Oh, was there another thing from the town?
Well, there was another thing from Bill yesterday that at another meeting, well, he got an email within a big attachment from, I can't remember who he got the email from, but Katie Dugan was commenting on the Diab Lane, kind of pushing, she was actually pushing back on the Diab Lane lots.
She had some total misinformation saying that she checked with the assessors and the 3 lots don't even exist and stuff like that. I went to an assessor's map that I have at home. I went back to 2000, I guess. And the Diab Lane, their lots are all
They do.
marked out and, you know, it's only a little driveway and all these. I think, you know, that was sort of all misinformation. There are things that have to be done based on that schedule in terms of, you know, making the proper applications for a building permit and all that other stuff. But that's, you know, that's something different. And it may, if they build a big house, they might have to go to site plan, you know, approval for big houses. But I don't have, you know, I don't have any of that information.
Yeah, I mean, I reviewed the sketches put together by Jimmy Dunn, I think, and they were fine as far as the 3 services. I just had like 6 comments that I sent to Lisa just for clarification.
Yeah, but I forwarded them to Matt and his attorney.
Okay.
Okay.
But as to date, he has not submitted the additional application fee of $2,100.
Okay.
And when he does, wait a few days to make sure it's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other business? Okay. Brian, everything else all good with you? Okay. I make a motion to close the meeting.
I second.
Second. All those in favor, say aye with your name.
Paul Pierce, aye.
Wayne Sawchuck, aye. And that passes. All right, see everybody in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, have a good
Bye.
week.
Bye-bye.